Hello, Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. I'm your host, Julian, and today we're going to be talking about the game against the LA Lakers. But before we do that, we've got to talk about Immanuel Quickley, the issues with the team while he is on the floor, and also kind of what are the Raptors going to do about him as a player and his contract. Let's jump in. So first of all, we got to start off with kind of a mea culpa because I was a big proponent of trading for Immanuel Quickley before the Raptors acquired him, and the Raptors decided to take my advice and trade OG Anunoby for RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley. Pretty well publicized trade at this point. I think it's fair to say that OG Anunoby has really helped the New York Knicks become one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference to go to the finals, perhaps even win a championship. And I would say that the Knicks have kind of gotten the better end of the deal at this point. RJ Barrett is a good player. I like what he brings to the table. But one of the issues has been what the Toronto Raptors have done since making that trade. And the first thing that they did was they went out and re-signed Immanuel Quickley to a very, very large contract, one that was larger than I assumed it would be, and paying him for future production and expectations rather than what he was currently producing. And it was kind of a sensible move at the time. You know, you have this kind of guy who has a lot of potential stuck behind a star player in Jalen Brunson. And, you know, it looked like he could become a starting caliber guard in the NBA. And the Raptors kind of made that trade hoping that he would grow into becoming the starting point guard that the Toronto Raptors needed. A guy who could shoot the ball, a guy who could run the offense, do all of that sort of stuff. New school NBA point guard who can score and make plays. Unfortunately, hasn't quite worked out that way. And what happened is that the Toronto Raptors kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball when they made this trade because Immanuel Quickley was on the final year of his deal, and the Toronto Raptors had to make a decision. And unfortunately, the decision they made was to kind of bid against themselves. The problem that they ran into was that when you make a big trade, like OG Anunoby for a player that is not under contract, you kind of are priced into paying that player. Like if you see that player as the future of your team or one of the core members of your team, you're going to want to lock them up, right? You don't make the trade and then, you know, waffle on it and let them leave. Then you're not really getting any value there. Unfortunately, they kind of used that logic to bid against themselves and gave him a really big, really long contract that is now not looking very good in hindsight. Quickley has not really become the type of player that most people were hoping for, including myself. Now, I understood at the time when the trade was made that IQ is not a prototypical point guard. He isn't a guy that is in it to set up his teammates first and then look for a shot second. He's got it the other way around. He's more of a shoot first point guard that can make plays. But I felt that he would complement the playmaking of the other members of the Toronto Raptors. They have a lot of willing passers on the team, Scotty Barnes being one of them. RJ Barrett being another, Jakob Poeltl being another. They've got a lot of guys who don't mind passing the ball. And so I figured that if, you know, he was a good enough shooter and could, you know, provide a little bit of the point guard responsibilities, the other guys could pick up the slack where he's not as strong. Unfortunately, this season, he's kind of been the worst of both worlds. So he's not making the right decisions in Darko's read and react offense, which is very much about getting the ball and making a quick decision with it. And you kind of have to have a higher IQ, no pun intended, in order to be able to make the types of reads that this offense requires. And as of right now, Immanuel Quickley has not been really excelling in that role. And on top of that, the other thing that I thought that he could really bring to the table, his shooting, and especially self-created shooting, has regressed and has not been up to snuff. Now, the stuff around the edges isn't that bad. Like, so if you dig into the advanced statistics, if you look at some of the other statistics that he has, like his defense is about average. That's what I believe, despite his reputation. I know there are a lot of people who are like really down on him as a defender, but I just don't get that from him. He isn't a stopper. He isn't like a superstar or anything on the defensive end, but he does about an average job, in my opinion. He's also not turning the ball over that much. Like a lot of the time, the problem with point guards is that, they turn the ball over like crazy, and he doesn't do that. And he also has a respectable number of assists. His assist to turnover ratio is good. And his overall efficiency from the field is not that bad. Like you would expect, like a guy like him who is very reliant on his 3-point shot, would have a worse true shooting percentage when he's not shooting the ball that well. So that's not the case. He is at 55% true shooting percentage, which is a little below league average efficiency, but it's not catastrophic. But the problem is that things just don't really look right when he is running the offense, and he doesn't really seem to fit what the Raptors want to do. And on top of that, the contract situation has made things a lot more difficult. So his contract is far too large for what he brings to the table, even if he were shooting the ball better. So even if he were like a 38% 3-point shooter, it doesn't look like what the Raptors need in order to be successful, and the contract really compounds that. Now, there is a lingering question about Immanuel Quickley, which is how would he look next to like a screen-setting big? Would he be as bad as he has been this season, or just out of place as he has been this season? So Poeltl has been out or hobbled for pretty much the entirety of this season. And Quickley actually looked quite good next to him in the limited minutes they played next to one another last season. And the problem is that it seems like Jakob Poeltl is going to be out for a lot longer. Like he is not participating in full speed workouts. He is still kind of like working his way back into shape. The question is, will he even be available this season? Like, is he even going to come back? That is a question that I don't know the answer to. And does it make sense to, wait and see? Can the Raptors afford to take a slower approach to things and see if Quickley can recover some of his value when Jakob Poeltl is back and setting the screens that he needs in order to be at maximum effectiveness? Because the Toronto Raptors are trying to compete this season. They, despite losing to the Lakers last night and the LA Clippers before that, they are still one of the, middling teams in the Eastern Conference. And right now they're in a playoff position. Do they stick with Immanuel Quickley? Do they stick with the players that are on their team right now? Or do they make a trade? Because as I mentioned, it could be that Immanuel Quickley is at his lowest possible value right now in the first year of his very big contract, playing without a real screen setting big. Is he playing below expectations? Absolutely. But are you trading low? Now, ESPN writer Tim Bontemps has indicated that Ja Morant, he feels that Ja Morant is very unlikely to be traded to the Heat or the Bucks. So kind of forget what I said last episode about Tyler Hero, because it doesn't seem like that's going to come to pass. But does that mean that the Toronto Raptors could be a contender to trade for Ja Morant? There's been a lot of buzz about that, and Immanuel Quickley is the type of player with the type of contract that the Toronto Raptors could be willing to move in order to get Ja Morant. And obviously, it wouldn't be a one-for-one swap. I know Ja Morant's value is a lot lower as well, but at the same time, the Toronto Raptors would have to throw in some draft capital there. Pretty obvious. So that is something you have to consider as well. Is it wise to make a move for Ja Morant when you have to send out assets in order to get him? Now, I've been over the Ja speculation. We don't have to delve all the way back into it, especially his fit on the Raptors, which I don't think is great right now. But just starting to wonder, have the Raptors had enough of the Immanuel Quickley experience? Is it worth it to make a big trade right now and sort of limit what you can do in the future and take a big risk on a player that you bring in, hoping that he is going to turn the season around for the Toronto Raptors? That's a question that I'm sure is top of mind for the Raptors front office, because it's a tricky situation. Do you sort of let yourself fall down the Eastern Conference standings with all of these injuries and kind of problems with the team, or do you try and address them? I am of both minds. I could see standing pat. I think that standing pat and keeping your draft capital, keeping your powder dry is a wise decision. And maybe, if the Toronto Raptors fall out of playoff contention, maybe it's wise to let that happen and then try and come back a little stronger next season. Or explore an Immanuel Quickley trade in the offseason when the dust has settled a little bit and you're not under the gun as much. But I could also see making a trade this season before the trade deadline and moving Immanuel Quickley out, especially if they don't feel like the situation is going to improve in the long term. Like, Immanuel Quickley's contract is very long and it is pretty onerous. If you feel like he's not going to get better, maybe it's time to just bite the bullet, make the trade that you feel like you can make, and then let the chips fall where they may and see if the Toronto Raptors can actually make something of this season. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, especially vis-a-vis the Ja Morant trade speculation. Very interested to see how that whole saga unfolds. There's even talk that Memphis might even hold on to Ja Morant, especially in light of how he did in Europe, which is actually pretty good. And he stated how loyal he is and that he's willing to play for the Grizzlies. You know, who knows? It could all be just sort of kabuki theater stuff that is being thrown out there to make other teams drive up their asking price, maybe try and find the right landing spot for him. There's a lot of different things that could be happening, and, you know, I don't know at this point, but it should be interesting to watch. In any case, there was a game last night. It wasn't a very good game. I didn't really enjoy it very much. There were a couple of problems there. I mean, CMB got his hand injured. The Raptors couldn't shoot again. They let the Lakers beat them for the 7th straight time. Just a very boring, bad game that had a lot of really negative things about it. So we're going to keep this pretty short for the player evaluations. We're going to start with Colin Murray-Boyles, because Colin Murray-Boyles, despite having to leave early and only playing 24 minutes, actually had a really good game. And, you know, it's a real shame that he had to leave the game, but he was injured by a player that I'm not a big fan of, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic smacked CMB's hand, and re-injured the thumb that he had been favoring, so he had to leave the game. I just read on Twitter from Michael Grange that the x-rays were negative and he was diagnosed with a thumb contusion, which is actually good news because it was supposed to be a thumb sprain. A contusion is a bruise. It is not as severe, so that is good news, and hopefully he's able to rejoin the team and play on this road trip because they're going to need him very badly. But his game was very good. He had 11 points on 5 of 7 shooting, so he was much more efficient than he has been over the past couple of games. He had 7 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, 5 assists, 3 blocks, and yeah, he was a -4 on the game. But the 3 blocks are pretty substantial because all of those blocks came against Luka Doncic. So you can see why Luka Doncic may have wanted this guy out of the game. And, you know, Luka Doncic was whining and moaning that he got a shot blocked, and he was saying it was like a goaltending, and he was just being a bit like, I'm making this more about Luka Doncic than about Colin Murray-Boyles, but Colin Murray-Boyles is just an excellent defender. He plays so well and so under control. He's able to move his feet quickly, but he's not in a hurry. Like, that is one expression that I think fits him so well. He's quick, but he's not in a hurry. He gets to where he needs to get to in the correct amount of time. You can't speed him up. He is going to really just sort of play at his own pace and make the right decision. He plays like a vet. I loved what he brought to the table. 11.7 rebounds, 5 assists. The 5 assists were very nice. He makes great decisions with the ball. When he gets the ball in the post and he's too tightly guarded, he kicks it out to the perimeter. He was able to make great reads, finding shooters. You know, the anemic shooting, he was responsible for some of those with his passing. But man, what a tough night for the Toronto Raptors. Scotty Barnes didn't have an amazing game. Brandon Ingram also did not have an amazing game. Both were very inefficient. We're just going to skip past them. Immanuel Quickley, we've already talked about. It was just more of the same. You know, he wasn't shooting very well. He, you know, didn't run the team very well. But we'll go to the bench and we'll talk about Sandro Mamukelashvili. He was pretty much the savior of this game. He had 20 points on really good efficiency. He was the only guy who was efficient from the field, at least. He was 8 of 12 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. He was 2 of 5 from the free throw line, which is, you know, not great, but he had 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a block. And it looks like he has kind of busted out of his funk. He was in a little bit of a slump a couple weeks ago, or maybe just over a week ago, but he's out of it now. He's had 2 good games in a row, 20 points off of the bench. He was definitely the most effective player, especially offensively. He really does a good job of getting into the paint quickly enough to beat the help defense. that is the thing about him, is that he can shoot from the outside. He can shoot, 2-point shots. He hit a couple of those last night, and he gets to the rim. Like he's a good scorer, especially in the front court. And the Toronto Raptors are very lucky to have this guy because he really saved them from embarrassment in this game. It was a blowout, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been, thanks to Sandro and sort of the burst that he gave the team on offense. And it was just a miserable night from everybody else. Nobody on the team could shoot. They shot 22% from three, and they busted that streak where if they shoot under 26%, they're 7-0 or whatever. Now it'll have to be, if they're shooting under 20%, they'll be, undefeated or something like that. But it was a really bad game. And the Toronto Raptors have been losing in the same way a lot recently, which is they have missed way too many of their 3-point shots. And they missed too many of them down the stretch. Brandon Ingram was inefficient. Scotty Barnes was inefficient. Grady Dick, he popped into the lineup and just couldn't make a shot. So he wasn't able to carry over his really good play from the past 2 games. He was invisible. Just a horrible game. And now we'll get to the Luka Doncic complaining. The guy is insufferable. I hate watching him. Him and Draymond Green, probably 2 of my least favorite players in the league. And my least favorite for similar reasons. So Luka Doncic, when he doesn't have things going his way, like entirely his way, he is just on top of the refs, whining. He makes these awful faces, these pained expressions, and he is just so much of a baby. I really don't like watching him play. And unfortunately for the Raptors, the Lakers were making their shots. They were playing good defense. I mean, you have to give credit to DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton had an amazing night. He was 10 of 10 from the field, had 25 points. He was playing great defense on Scotty Barnes. The Raptors just did not have an answer for him. And he was catching lob passes from Luka Doncic. He was pretty much the difference in this game. The Raptors' lack of a center. I keep going back and forth on whether the Raptors need a center or whether they need shooting, which one they need more. They need both, but which one do they need more? And in this game, they needed a real center because DeAndre Ayton just kind of ate them alive with 20 points, perfect from the field, 13 rebounds and a block, and was playing amazing defense on Scotty Barnes. So yeah, this one was a complete write-off. Hallelujah. The Toronto Raptors only shot 2 fewer free throws than the Lakers in this game. So free throw differential didn't come into play as much as I thought it would. Unfortunately, a lot of those things were just missed calls. So, there was the foul that was committed by Luka Doncic that sent CMB out of the game, but then there was also one where he forearmed Brandon Ingram in the chest while he was driving to the rim. Brandon Ingram only shot 3 free throws. He should have shot like 8 or something like that. He was fouled a bunch of times, but this was too bad of a loss to really pin it all on the refs, although I will still complain about the refs. I can complain about whatever I want to. This is my show, okay? So if you don't like it, you think I'm letting the Toronto Raptors off the hook, I guess you're just going to have to deal with it. But yeah, Raptors didn't play well, and they lose this game 2nd in a row. And they will be moving on to Golden State, who they've had some success against. They beat them already this season, but of course they're playing in Oracle. They're playing in California. They're not playing in Toronto. And they will be facing a geared up Golden State Warriors team. They have been on a tear recently. They've only lost, a handful of games over the past 10, and they're going to be playing at home. So this is going to be another tough one. The Raptors, I don't know if CMB is going to be back, but I am expecting a loss here, unfortunately. And then it gets a little bit easier. The Toronto Raptors will be playing some below 500 teams, Sacramento Kings, Portland Trail Blazers. Then they cap off the road trip against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that'll be a tough one. But hopefully the Raptors, can get a couple of wins on this dreaded West Coast road trip. And that will make me a little bit happier than I am today. So that is the episode. Hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like and subscribe because that helps the algorithm know that this is content that other Raptors fans would like to watch. There's a podcast tonight at 8:30, so join me and Steve on the podcast, or if you can't catch it when we're airing it, watch it afterwards or listen to it afterwards on Spotify or here on YouTube, and join the Discord. There are a lot of Raptors fans there talking Raptors ball, also talking Blue Jays and around the league in the NBA. Lots of discussion going on there. We'd love you to join, so please click the link in the description. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.